Urban Explorer of Reddit. What was your I bet gtfo story? I was exploring an abandoned mineshaft for the second day in a row. This time I brought more friends and better flashlights. The door I had gone through the first day was now padlocked shut. That should been the first red flag. But we found an entrance from the rooftop into one of the main buildings and continued to explore anyway. After exploring about 3 floors of mineshaft below ground, we were back on the main floor exploring the workshop/garage, and I was looking through the cracks of light coming through the rusted metal walls when I noticed a bright color that stood out from the rest of the area. It was a man looking back at me through the cracks. I was seeing his blue sweater. I could see 2 sets of eyes looking into the room that we were in. After whispering to my friends that there were people watching us through the wall, we fucking booked it out of there and jumped off the roof and into the woods. The men were in a pickup truck and drove around looking for us. Even getting out of the truck to look around, we couldn't see them from where we took cover, but we could hear the truck stop, the doors open, and footsteps breaking leaves and twigs only 20 feet away from us. We hid there for about 15 holding our breath while the men searched all around for us. I'm not going back there. Not terribly urban. Back when I lived in the rural south, but my friend and I went to an abandoned trailer because she wanted to show me all the old Playboys that were left lying around in it. There were pentagrams painted on the front door and on one wall of the bedroom that was through the kitchen, but that wasn't too spooky. My brother was one of those edgy teenagers, and I had seen more than enough crookedly spray painted pentagrams to know it was just idiots goofing off. Now, the scary part was the half-dead cat hung by its back legs from the ceiling fan in the back room down the hall. We went to take it down so we could call the cops and then hopefully get to bury it at her house and give it some peace. And then it woke up and started squalling. It scratched me on my arms and her on the face and tried to get away, but it was so weak all it could do was stagger. We eventually got it wrapped in my shirt and walked home to explain to her mom where we were and how it happened. That crotchety old cat lived like another 6 years with no teeth, dislocated back legs, fixed by the vet of course. But the cat still limped forever and horrible cataracts. Edit. I posted a picture of her on my page if you'd like to see. I was exploring an old stormwater filtration plant once. The lower levels of the main buildings were all flooded, which was super creepy, and it was pretty overgrown. This was my second time there, and I wanted to see more than I had last time. A friend of mine and I had the bright idea to climb into one of the pipes that had an open manhole cover, really stupid for a whole bunch of reasons. We figured we had a pretty good guess where it would come out, as there was another manhole on the other side of the compound in line with where the pipe was heading. When we got all the way there though, it turned out to be welded shut. The worst bit was, when we turned to go back we realized we'd been slowly going downhill. The pipe was fairly slimy, and it seemed for a minute like we wouldn't be able to go back the way we'd come. I've never quite felt that level of claustrophobia before or since. Edit. As others are rightly saying, never do this. I realized shortly after how dangerous it was. Thanks for the safety tips and up points, friends. Was exploring an abandoned TB hospital. Heard a sound that sounded a lot like a homeless person snoring. It took a while for my friends and I to work up the courage to go in the room where we heard it, but we were rewarded with the sight of a vulture's nest. I was taking a look at some of those massive smokestacks in an abandoned factory, and I heard a radio squelch. That's time to go. Right there. Little bit late here, but I once went exploring with my brother on an old, abandoned naval base at midnight. We snuck into the officers' quarters and were just exploring when we heard a weird noise. We are both into photography, so I decided to take a flash photo and see if I caught anything weird in the light. The camera went off, and we both saw a massive 6 feet long bee's nest on the side of one of the walls. I think our presence has just disturbed them, because hundreds of them were already crawling in the outside of the nest. It was the single most scariest thing I've ever seen, and it was gone in a second because of the camera flash. We noped the fuck out of there right as a cop was pulling up to see what we were up to, lol. Edit. Just dug through my old laptop for a couple hours to try and find the pictures. They are not very clear. but I think this is a portion of the nest. https://imga.com/gallery/kick36e. I convinced a group of about 5 or so of my friends to go with me into this old house that was in an odd sort of industrial area. Like on one of those service roads next to a highway. The only way in was to go through the basement and through a hole in the wall at the top of the stairs. After exploring for a while, I thought I'd do a scout mission for fun that involved me just walking around the house to check for cops. Well, what do you know? There were cop cars just pulling into the street with sirens on that were pulling into the restaurant next door. Someone probably reported us. The exit was on the other side of the house from the cops. I quickly called up to the others to climb back out, and we somehow managed. I don't generally believe in intuition, but I do find it odd that I had the urge to do a sweep right when the cops showed up. No really scary ones other than random bums yelling and stuff. But there were a couple of good encounters. 1. Messing around in the outskirts of a train yard taking pics of old train cars and stuff. Ran into, I guess, a mechanic or maintenance worker or something who ended up being super cool and started up and pulled a locomotive out of the shed for us. 2. In an old, abandoned mining site somewhere, I came around the side of a big machine thing and ran into a homeless dude living in a tent. He also turned out to be cool. We gave him some of our food and sat around for a while talking. I was 16 or 17, so like 2006-ish. Out in a park out in a western suburb of Chicago with some friends. It's a medium-sized forest preserve with a big industrial lot leading to the parking lot. Then a prairie area. Then a big old forest with paths. We are walking around the forest for a few hours in the early afternoon and see some random pentagrams around and stuff. Honestly, nothing super out of the ordinary, but they seem concentrated by this field that's probably like 2,000 square feet of 4 feet tall grass. For whatever reason, I thought it would be fun to walk into the middle of the grass field. Right in the dead center, there is like a 8 feet long, 3 feet wide rectangle of freshly dug ground. Like perfect for a body. Because of how tall the grass was. It was almost totally covered, but when I moved the grass back it was like a burial mound. I told my friend we had to leave, and so we beelined back to the parking lot. My friend didn't smoke in his car, so we had a cig next to the car. Cop pulls up. And we are underage, so we flick our cigarettes and start to get in the car. Cop turns on his lights and stops us. Once he sees we're kids. He says something like, "Better get out of here. It's not a good place to be after dark." Update, a couple people mentioned a cult nearby. I remembered rumors, but apparently years later it was confirmed that there was basically something like that more or less connected to the park. https://www.chicagomag.com/Chicago Magazine/July 2016 Institute in Basic Life Principles Hinsdale/ Edit. Well, since someone asked, here's the video. Immediately after is when he blared the horn etc. https://imga.com/gallery/hl31ov https://imga.com/gallery/hl31ov. Boy oh boy, do I have a story. Went urban exploring in an abandoned college campus. Was pretty cool. Due to be demolished, and there was some really nice graffiti. At the time I kept sending video messages to a friend of me roaming around looking at everything. The way the area was set up was pretty much a singular building in this giant lot with nothing on it. Right in the middle, with it being open area about 100 meters either way. The building was 3 stories, and on the ground floor had an open area where there appeared to be an abandoned car. So I was messing around looking at this graffiti and the random junk everywhere, and recording videos for my friend, when I finally went to record the graffiti right next to the car. I started filming a video of the graffiti when, what do you know, the car turns on. I immediately throw my hands up and point towards the gate to gesture sorry, didn't realize someone was here. I'll be on my way. When the guy starts blaring on the horn and starts revving the engine. At this point I'm startled and decide to gun it down the driveway back to the gate, and what do you know, he starts speeding after me in the car whilst still blaring on the horn. Due to being startled and running, I apparently accidentally hit send to the video I took on my phone to my friend, while still captioning it 11:11 as I was running away. I have the video saved if anyone's curious. At this point I was right in the headlights with him right behind, so I turned off the driveway and ran over a pile of rocks. Falling down on my way down the other side of them. Scratched my knee really badly. Glasses went flying off and got scratched up too. I get the glasses and sprint, more like hobble quickly, to the fence where there's some bush covering. The guy pulls up nearby and winds down the window and you could smell the car from how far I was. It was putrid and the guy for sure looked like he was living out of the car. I have insane adrenaline going and sort of slink further away through the bushes but can't get over the fence. I figured I could wait the guy out. I was there for around 20 minutes whilst he sat there with his car idling. By this point my friend was practically having a panic attack thinking I just got murdered and my adrenaline was wearing off and the pain from my leg was setting in, so I couldn't climb the fence and get away quickly without him noticing. My friend was messaging me like crazy asking if I was okay and she ended up driving to the place to rescue me. She pulled up a bit up the street and the guy drove up towards there which gave me the chance to climb the fence. She rushed down to where I had said I was, picked me up, and we drove off. Never have I been so scared in my life. And have never appreciated someone more. Came upon an active shooting gallery in a tunnel one time. I noped TF out of there in a hurry. I was inside an abandoned brewery, looking at the old equipment. I climbed a lot of stairs and found a door with scribbles of graffiti on it. Among them the sentences "don't look down" and "commit suicide here." We were about 4 stories off the ground at this point, but my curiosity was killing me. I opened the door. Nothing. No stairs or balcony or fence. The door was on the wall of the building and opened into thin air. And you absolutely would have been killed painfully had you fallen out. Edit. I posted photos of the graffiti/view down. It was lower to the ground than I remember, but it was still terrifying. In a building I found the basement. Then the sub-basement. It was dark. Heard a sound. Then an animal running sound. And dogs barking. I fucking booked it back up the stairs and closed the fire door and gtfo. Speaking to some urbex mentors they explained, if you hear dogs or see them, to not go in the area as it's probably used for a drug lab. Spooky cement tunnel that seems to lead underground. Very dark and echoes go on for ages. We had no clue what it was. Didn't seem to be any kind of drainage tunnel because it was square/bone dry and out in an open field. There are definitely some old bomb shelters and missile silos on our area that are out of commission. So we decided to take a look. Only about 20 yards in and the light from outside starts really fading behind us. Someone takes out a flashlight and we start seeing bare human footprints on the ground leading deeper into the dark. None leaving. We skedaddled. Oh, I've had my share of things that made me nope out. Here's just a few. 1. Found a gas leak in an abandoned house that had been building up for years a couple weeks ago. I gtfo. But not before finishing taking the photos I wanted with extreme caution. That one I reported to the cops, as it's classified as the kind of hazard in the urbex community that supersedes discretion. 2. Ran into the security guard doing an unexpected interior patrol. He definitely knew we were there, so we had to book it for the tree line before he could get the cops out there to search. 3. Some homeless dude chucking cans and bottles out the 5th story window of an old factory my friend and I were poking around to scare us off. We took a hint and left. 4. Tripped a motion detecting camera in the basement of an abandoned building and had to bail. I know for a fact they got a full face photo of me staring directly into the camera with shock, but I never heard anything more about it. Decided to solo mission an abandoned church. Dropped down through a window into the basement. After wandering through some hallways I found a large room with the stairs to the main level at the other end. Started crossing the room when I heard footsteps above me. It sounded like somebody walking with crutches or a peg leg making a weird thunk thunk. Thunk thunk. The steps seemed to be going in a circle. I paused for a minute. I'd had run-ins with homeless people before that were generally amiable. I'd make small talk for a minute. Give them a smoke and some change. And everything would be copacetic. I wasn't normally scared to run into them. This time I had a weird bad feeling. After hesitating, I took a couple more steps toward the stairs. I was so focused on the noise above me that I accidentally kicked an empty spray paint can which clattered away along the floor. The footsteps above me stopped for a moment. Then whatever it was began running, still making that thunk thunk, towards the stairs I was about to start climbing. I was suddenly more terrified than I have ever been in my life. I sprinted full tilt back toward the window I'd come through as whatever it was began running down the stairs and somehow managed to quickly claw my way up and out. I didn't look back until I was safely out of the building, at which point I could neither hear nor see anything. I waited outside for a few minutes, but apparently whoever it was had decided scaring me off was good enough and had retreated back into the building. Slightly spooky epilogue. About 3 weeks later I went back with a couple friends. We made our way into the building and up the stairs without incident. Inside the church we found obvious evidence of multiple homeless persons living there. There were mattresses set up in corners. Some small fires had been lit, etc. Most of it was fairly normal. However, on the windowsills we found multiple birds and small mammals, all of which had been beheaded, and their bodies carefully lined up. After perusing and photographing the main sanctuary, I and one friend made our way up to the 3rd floor, which had classrooms and offices. Coming up the stairs I could see the door to a room off the landing at the very top. As I got to the last few stairs the door abruptly slammed shut. The room had been dark and didn't appear to have any windows, and I couldn't feel a breeze or see any open windows looking down the hallway from the top of the stairs that could have pulled the door shut. My friend tried to open the door and said that it felt like there was something on the other side pushing it shut. We elected not to explore the 3rd floor, and after going downstairs and consulting with our other friend it was decided we should leave. About 3 years later I revisited that church, and when I came to the top of the stairs I found the door to that room wide open. Shining my flashlight in I confirmed that the room had no windows. That church is fairly well known in the local exploring community, and while several people have said they got a bad feeling or felt creeped out there, nobody else has had any kinds of encounters. I assume the first incident was a homeless resident trying to scare me off. The dead animals were the work of an unmedicated schizophrenic, and the slamming door was a homeless person not wanting his nap/high disturbed by some dumb kids. That said, the whole experience was hair-raising, and I still bring it up as an anecdote for new explorers on why you should never explore alone. Less urban but sharing anyway. I was camping in BC with my GF at the time and her dog. Had a couple of rough looking people who were the only other people in the area we were camping, but it was late, so we set up and thought nothing of it. Guy wanders over while we're in our tent, can hear him outside, and dog is barking at this point. I get out and ask what he's doing, and he says he just wanted to pet the dog. This is at like midnight. Told him we were settling in etc. Guy wanders off without replying at all to what I'd said. Woke up the next morning to what looked to me like a single 9mm bullet sitting upright on our site's picnic table, and a happy face made with sticks and rocks on the bench part of the table below it. Maybe it was just a shitty joke, but we sure as fuck didn't stay around to find out. I did lots in the UK a few years back. Denby Asylum in general just made me nope the fuck out. That place was scary. When I was a teenager, some friends and I would occasionally party in the disused biology department of the local university. Would get in through a hole one of us cut in this barbed wire fence surrounding the building. Maybe the 4th or 5th time hanging out there a few of us are exploring and find a lab that's still got like beakers and vials in it. And there's this biggest walk-in freezer type door in the back with plastic tape over it. Sort of like crime scene tape. Being the young imbeciles we were, we tore the tape off and opened the door. It was definitely some kind of storage area, with shelves full of jars of weird liquids and powders, and the ground was covered in broken glass from a jar that had fallen and shattered, releasing this red powdery substance that was coating everything. We realized it probably was hazardous to our health. Went back to the main group and we all left and never went back. I still have no idea what the stuff was. It could have been harmless. But I'm also glad we were sober enough not to try tasting it or something stupid like that. I was exploring when I noticed some dude trailing me. I was saved by a bus driver who noticed me and opened the door as he passed by me.